Ruggero, who is going to be speaking to us about new insights into living positively with primary progressive aphasia.
Thank you. We know that in the last 10 years there's been a body of research come out about the idea of living successfully with stroke aphasia. Over in the dementia world, there's also been a body of research coming out about the idea of what they call it living well or living positively with dementia. And this movement is in the community as well as just in research. So people like Kate Swaffer, who last year was State Australian of the Year, or Roger Marple are examples of people that maintain businesses or blogs on the idea of fighting stigma and telling us how they live well with dementia. So I wanted to know what would happen if I took this idea and investigated it in the primary progressive aphasia population, who I'm very privileged to have access to thanks to South Eastern Sydney Local Health District. I've interviewed 10 people with PPA. The questions are very much based around the original living successfully with aphasia literature. We didn't think the word successfully sat so well with a progressive disorder, so we've changed it to positively. We had a visual scale, and I've asked questions such as, how positively are you living with PPA? Can you tell me a little bit about why? What helps? What makes it harder? And this last one was very insightful. What advice would you give others living with PPA? And I've been conducting an inductive thematic analysis on those transcripts, including the non-verbal information that was in the interviews. So I've got some very early results coming out now. The discussion tended to focus on 4 main aspects. The first one was, of course, communication. So people with PPA predominantly present with word-finding difficulties. It takes away for me nouns. I have difficulty with nouns, spelling, and maths, and were all my life the best subjects. The second was the negative impact of PPA, so things to do with loss and avoidance. There was, after diagnosis, a really close army friend who just dropped off really, which was very sad. And thirdly, this idea kept coming back about the fact that nobody really understands what PPA is. When you explain it to your friends, they keep misunderstanding and think it's something else, particularly a stroke. And then lastly, the discussion also focused on how to be positive, which was what I was asking people about. 4 of the 10 participants screened positively for depression, which is similar to what we expect in the population. But even those people with depression were able to generate some sort of idea about what helped them to live a little bit more positively. So they reported that living positively with PPA is influenced by factors that speech pathologists can modify, things like education about PPA, meeting other people with the condition, family and friends support, and also your approach to and strategies for talking. So this one split the group kind of in 2. For some people, avoiding talking was a source of positivity for them because it meant they were avoiding embarrassment and situations they couldn't control. Whereas for some people, deliberately continuing to talk was a source of positivity for them because it meant that they were fighting the progressive diagnosis and working actively against it. And participants also reported that living positively was influenced by some factors that are outside our level of expertise. So philosophical perspectives, for example, I had one gentleman who talked about the fact that yes, he was very aware he had PPA, but he'd been to the third world, to India and Africa, and seen how people lived there, and he was very grateful that he had PPA and not a life like these other people. Pre-morbid personality, so people said to me, I think I'm dealing with this okay because I've always been a positive person. And keeping busy was a big one, so exercise, going out, maintaining hobbies, and then for some people they also mentioned that finances were sometimes a facilitator of being able to maintain hobbies like travel and going to the cinema. So I've still got results coming in at the moment, but so far what I've learned is that people with PPA can be informants of their own situation and their quality of life if they're given appropriate communication support. Some of the participants who were able to say very little were some of the most insightful ones. People with PPA are aware of the challenges of living with PPA, but they're also able to identify what makes it easier to be positive. And there are a number of potentially modifiable factors that appear to influence living positively as as I've outlined, things that we might be able to help people with. Where to from now? I don't think any of the things that people have said to me and that I'm finding are very surprising, but now we actually have evidence and we can say, look, these are factors that help. Commission is like that. I'm very much hoping that these results can be used to advocate for speech pathology services, the PPA, inform the quantitative measures that we might use for quality of life, provide education to newly diagnosed people on what living with PPA can be like, and to develop and evaluate interventions to facilitate living positively. And big thanks to my group at Macquarie and to Lindsay. Thank you.